This is the 2024 Ford Ranger Raptor, and it is the ultimate off-road mid-size pickup truck, but in reality it shares little to nothing with the standard Ford Ranger. For example, the suspension has been completely changed, especially in the rear. Under the hood is a twin-turbocharged V6 borrowed from the larger Ford Bronco Raptor. Inside is a luxury-like interior, and the exterior, the new looks, are just 1/10 of an inch narrower than the full-size Ford F-150 pickup truck, but that means it's still very much way narrower than the full-size Ford F-150 Raptor, which makes this thing better suited for narrow trails and even parking and maneuvering in the city. Now in this video, I'll show you why the new Ranger Raptor is better than the rest. So here it is, the new Ranger Raptor, and it has a starting price of $55,620, which is a considerable increase over the standard Ranger's price of $32,000 and change. But as we said in the beginning of the video, this is almost entirely a totally different truck. Now, on the topic of that price, it's way cheaper than the full-size F-150 Raptor, but it is the most expensive off-road mid-size pickup truck. But if you ask me, it's by far the best buy. Now, first, before we get into the exterior and underneath, I want to show you this key. And it is sort of the standard Raptor key, so to speak, and you do get lock, unlock, remote start, and panic button functionality. So fairly straightforward there, as long as some other features we'll show you here in a sec. Starting with the front of this truck, it is finished in shelter green metallic, which is a metallic green. That's not a bad color. I personally prefer eruption green from Ford, but this isn't bad either. It doesn't look very metallic-y because the sun's not currently out, but that's what that color is. The styling is very much that of a Ford Raptor. We can see all of these cool features in the front, including some cameras for some of our off-road modes, some of these hood bulges, things like that. You do get performance LED lighting all around on the truck. That includes the bed lighting, taillights, etc. All of that's LED based. If we take a look at the front here, you'll notice that this truck is pretty tall as well. You've actually got 10.7 inches of ground clearance, which is a considerable improvement over the standard Raptor, which is thanks to the new suspension and even the bigger off-road tires, but that also improves your departure and approach angles. Now, talking about the approach angle, it's 33 degrees in the front here, which is really good. In the back, it's 26.4 degrees, which isn't the best, but being that it is in fact a pickup truck, you're always going to suffer a bit because of that bed overhang in the rear tires. But all in all, quite impressive for off-roading, not to mention with how wide this truck is. I mean, this thing comes in at 79.8 inches wide, which is just 1/10 of an inch wide, or narrower, I should say, than the full-size Ford F-150, but it will definitely fit down more trails, and that's not including the mirrors. Underneath here, we have some other cool Raptor features, like this very, very strong steel skid plate, which not only protects the front of the engine, but also protects the transmission. You also have a variety of those functional vents that can open and close in front of all of your various radiators and coolers and such that can be adjusted to manage the engine settings. As we move around to the side of the truck, there's some other really cool stuff to talk about, specifically here. Now, this truck has been equipped with some special options. Specifically, we have these 17-inch beadlock capable wheels. You have two different options for the Raptor. This is the more expensive option, but they are in fact beadlock capable, and they look kind of like the stuff that you'll find on the Ford Bronco Ranger, and these are 6 lugs as well. They look pretty good. They're wrapped in these 33-inch tires, which are these BF Goodrich Baja Champion all-terrain KO3s. So these are quite nice, very expensive tires that have plenty of side protection and even just a good tread pattern as well. Now, getting into the technical stuff, you have disc brakes all around, but more importantly, one of the first changes is going to be that track width, and that's going to be where the wheels are sitting. It's 3.5 inches wider here on the Ranger Raptor, and that's thanks to the forged aluminum control arms here in the front, so it's a double A-arm setup. And we even have the class-exclusive Fox suspension, which of course is a Raptor staple, and it even features their live adjustment, so that means that everything is automatically adjusting on the fly as you use it, and based off whatever suspension setting you have, but we'll talk more about that on the interior. The other thing we should talk about is these fenders. Now look at this. Obviously they have the standard body panels, but these big plastic wide body fenders, which add a lot to that width, which means that total width is really just where the fenders are, and the body is still the standard Ranger body. You'll note here we have some other sort of fun non-functional intakes. We have our power adjustable mirrors, which lock when the truck is turned off with turn signals, and of course heated with more cameras for off-road visibility. We do have this interesting step here, which is quite nice. It's steel, it's very rigid, no flexing or anything like that, but it's a little bit awkward. You see, when I stand next to it at 6 foot, it's at my shin, so I don't necessarily need it to get into this truck. And when I get out, it feels like it gets in the way and can be a little bit awkward at times. So it's on there nonetheless, and I think it does look good. Some of the other things we should talk about, the overall visibility of the truck. You do get passive keyless entry with, of course, the push button start on the inside, but more importantly is going to be these buttons right here above the driver's side door. Now, this is a Ford feature that has been around for a very, very long time, but they keep adding it. And the reason for that, and I can tell you from the Ranger owners that I've talked to, specifically the Raptor owners I've talked to, that they like this feature, and it's one of their favorite features on Ford trucks in general that keeps them coming back, because of course this means you don't necessarily have to have the keys on you, but can unlock your truck just with these buttons, which is fantastic. We have tinted windows in the back. Of course, this is the Super Crew cab, so you get 4 doors. And as we come to the back, it starts to get real exciting. Now, of course, we have what is a 5-foot bed that, of course, is widened Raptor with available graphics packages options. And we should also point out that here is our fuel tank fill on the driver's side, which has actually been increased for the Ranger Raptor. Standard is 18 gallons for the Ranger. Here on the Raptor, it's now 20 gallons. Here, though, underneath in the back, the suspension has been totally changed. Standard Ranger still kind of uses a leaf spring setup, but here we have a Watts link setup with trailing arms. That is like real trophy truck stuff that you want when off-roading, and of course still have those Fox shocks, and even our squared fitment for our wheels here, available with our full-time 4-wheel drive. And this is very impressive as far as everything goes. Now, as we come around to the back, we have our LED lighting, and of course a very durable bumper here that also has these tow hooks. We have a dual exhaust, which is actually an adjustable dual exhaust. You'll notice some of our tow hooks, black Ford badging, which is exclusive to things like the Tremor packages on the Raptors, but kind of a cool differentiator. I also want to talk about the fact that the Ranger Raptor has a full-size spare underneath the truck, which is great if something happens while you're on the trail, but just a great reason for owning a truck in general, because that is a huge value proposition in my opinion, and goes a long way in terms of just the overall usability of this thing. Now, the other thing we should talk about is the actual functionality of everything that we have here in the bed. Now, obviously, there are some optional spray-in bed liners for the Ford Tough bed, like what you see here, and it is a 5-foot bed, so it's not the biggest bed on the planet, but there is a lot of cool functionality back here. For example, here on the left side of the bed, you actually have ports here for both 12-volt and 120-volt parts for charging or using whatever you need it to in the bed. So there's quite a few different tie-down points and things that are available with the option to add even more stuff. There's some fun Easter eggs, such as the Ford things. Even these sort of red drawstrings here to limit the bed from falling too far are kind of just a fun feature that kind of screams performance. But you even actually have a strut here on the side, which will prevent it from falling too fast. So there's lots of very cool things here that really feels like Ford put a lot of extra engineering effort in here and just makes the overall space quite functional. Not to mention the fact that we actually have our power sliding rear window there that is accessible from the inside, but quite a nice feature. LED lighting in the rear, including the bed lighting, and it's just a good looking truck, especially with the various functionality that Ford's put in here. But we have to talk about the compromises that you make by buying the Raptor. Now, unfortunately, because of the off-road tuned suspension and the off-road capabilities here, you do make sacrifices in terms of the overall payload capacity, which has been reduced on this truck. The max you can get with the Ranger is about 1,800, but here in the Raptor, it's going to be more like 1,500. So not a huge sacrifice. You just have to accept that that's what you get by buying the off-road suspension. And then there is a towing sacrifice as well. You can see that we actually have a hitch on this truck, but the Ranger Raptor is only going to be able to tow about 5,500 pounds, whereas the most the Ranger can do is rated up to 7,500 pounds. So depends on your use case. If you absolutely need your Ranger to tow, you may want to look at the other options depending on what it is you're towing. But otherwise, this is such a cool package and still has a lot of the functionality of a regular pickup truck. So under the hood here is a twin-turbocharged turbocharged EcoBoost 3-liter V6, which is actually shared with the bigger Bronco Raptor. However, it's been detuned here in the Ranger Raptor, and now it produces 405 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. And you can even see one of the 2 Garrett turbochargers here on the passenger side. The one on the driver's side is a bit hidden further back. Now, this engine is then paired with a 10-speed select shift automatic transmission, which can also be manually shifted, and it features a 2-speed electronically shifting transfer case, meaning you can shift into your various drive modes on the fly. And although it is full-time 4-wheel drive, it of course has a 2-high mode, which is mostly what I've been using while driving this thing on the street. Now, some other things to talk about: it does have locking front and rear differentials, which help for all the various drive modes and things that are also available for this truck. But we should also talk about just some of its general performance. I mean, this thing moves, considering that it's smaller than a lot of its cousins, but features this bigger, crazier motor. Now, this truck weighs 5,372 pounds, but it'll do 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds for a pickup truck, a quarter mile in 14.1 seconds, with a limited governed top speed of 107 miles per hour. Now, that's not too shabby, all things considered, and it is fairly heavy, but obviously you have that very heavy-duty suspension, which makes up for a lot of that. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is fuel economy. So this thing has a 16 mile per gallon city rating, 18 mile per gallon highway, and 17 miles per gallon combined. And that's, of course, rated by the EPA. And this thing actually features a larger fuel tank than the standard Rangers. It's 2 gallons larger, or 20 gallons total. And with that combined range, you're looking at 340 miles on average, which will obviously improve a little bit or decrease depending on how you drive it or take it on road trips. The other thing I want to point out is just the ease of use for maintenance. You can see that things like the air filter, the battery, and even some of your various fluids are all easily to access and change and swap out. So any maintenance items that you want to do yourself or might do regularly after off-roading, like your air filter box, is all very easy to replace. So that's a quick look at the powertrain in the Ford Ranger Raptor. So moving on to the interior of the Ranger Raptor. This truck is finished in black, which is how they come, but of course with all of these red-orange accents that look absolutely incredible. And while it is still a Ranger interior, it has been received an upgrade that is, I would describe it as almost luxury-like. For example, we now have these beautiful leather trim seats that say Raptor here near the headrest, heavy side bolstering to hold you in place during rough roads, and of course they are power adjustable, they are heated, and you even get memory with 3 different positions here for the driver's seat. So that's quite a nice feature. Even things like this leather trim steering wheel, which has this 12 o'clock stripe at the top, deviated stitching here, and even Raptor. And one of the other things that I quite like is this, the fact that this comes standard. You have these lock in place sort of foot guards here that are rubber, so you can take them out and rinse them off with a hose anytime you go into dirt, mud, snow, etc. It's now easier to clean your rugged off-road Raptor. And of course, Ford performance just doesn't miss with stuff like this. Now, I also want to show you the back seat before we get too far into the front. If we go ahead and open up the back seat here, we of course have a matching rear section, and these can definitely be folded up. For example, pull this tab and you get access to the underside storing, which isn't much, but it is still there, and you can even lock them in place if you wanted storage that way. I will tell you this, at 6 foot with the seat set up for me in the front, I can't fit in the back. It is just too small for me, but you can definitely fit some slightly smaller people than me. Kids should have no problem back here, and it'll work for adults in a pinch. But you do have a variety of functionality. Headrests back here. You do get the storage for the cup holders, USB chargers, including an AC 120 volt plug, which is very nice, and the same rubber mat. So that's a nice back seat. Not too shabby there for the Super Crew. But let's go ahead and hop into the front. Once we get in here, let's go ahead and start it up. Push to start here in the Ranger Raptor. Nice animations on both screens. You have digital displays for the driver and the center here, which this is a huge change from the standard Ranger. This is a 12-inch display here. This is basically larger than an iPad for managing a lot of your controls. And to be fair, there's quite a lot to look at. For example, you have access to your cameras now, so you can see around the truck, and doubled with the various off-road modes, that goes a long ways. Now this does have navigation, Ford Connect, Sirius XM radio, all that type of stuff. And it's also how you manage your heated steering wheel, a lot of your climate controls, even though there are physical buttons for the climate controls as well, but not for the heated seats and heated steering wheel. That's all going to be through here. You do have the navigation system, which works fine, and a lot of the other stuff that's available. You do get a wireless charger here, lots of various little cubbies and storage, including these cup holders, which are fairly firm for things that fit. I like that the shifter here for a 10-speed automatic transmission is a physical moving one, as opposed to a rotary dial like what you find on the Maverick. I prefer this tremendously. And of course, we have the exciting stuff here. That's going to be the drive modes here. Currently it's in 2 high, but you can do full-time 4 high, 4 low, your trailer modes, and of course your 4A, your automatic modes. But we also have the off-road modes here. So you have traction control, some of the parking assist buttons, and even your auto off start buttons. But one of the cool things are, in the off-road modes, you'll see it adjust for some of the trail cameras, so you can adjust all of your various settings, and you can even manage a lot of the truck settings that are going to be available here with your various menus. So all of that is quite nice and easily adjustable. You'll even note some of the trailer adjustments here in the center. Now, taking a look at the Ford steering wheel, I love all of the functionality of this. For example, we have a lot of our basic controls, cruise control here on the left side with volume controls, voice controls. It looks great with Raptor, even the thumb holds. You actually have these manual paddle shifters on the side, which feel metal, which is a quality touch. But here is more fun stuff. So we actually have this exhaust button for our dual exhaust, so you can adjust it here. There's a quiet mode, a normal mode, a sport mode, and a Baja mode, which is technically not recommended for the street. You can see it's off-road use only there, and a quiet mode if you don't want to wake up the neighbors, but it starts out in normal, and that's what we're set to. You also have the suspension adjusting button, so you touch that and you go from normal to sport and then off-road, and you have the steering options, which are a little bit different. That's going to be normal, comfort, and sport. And the other cool thing is obviously you can adjust it on the fly with these buttons that are available, but more importantly is this button, our Raptor button. If you touch the Raptor button, you can see it brings up your My Mode settings, which you can adjust for your personal preference. And at the touch of a button, we'll immediately adjust all 3 of these settings on the fly. So that's pretty nice. These are also going to be how you manage the main display here for the driver. So if we take a look here, you can see currently it's set up for my gauges. Obviously things like the tach, your current drive modes, even your various boost pressure, fuel gauge will always be displayed. But you can in fact adjust what's going to be in the center. So you can touch some of the back buttons and you can check out the Raptor status and the off-road status, pitch and roll even, and that's going to change what's being displayed on the center screen. And while you're driving, so it's not too distracting with the touch screen, you can actually cancel some of your navigation settings also from this screen. So there's a lot of functionality here, and really there's no limit to what you can actually adjust. The other things I want to talk about is whatever music you decide to play. I've been mostly using CarPlay settings for the usability with the truck, but there's the fact that you actually have the Bang & Olufsen 10-speaker sound system, which even comes with a subwoofer, and this system sounds phenomenal, and of course comes standard here on the Ford Ranger Raptor. But what a truck. I love that the interior, while it's still very much in a Ranger, has been changed in all the right ways for this truck. It's just so great. The most important things perhaps that we have to point out is going to be up here, which is also these upfitter switches. Now, just like the regular Raptors, these were added after the Gen 1 trucks. You can actually wire whatever you want up to these switches, and they have this nice tactile clicky feedback, and you can wire whatever you want up to them, and they already exist in the truck and don't break or ruin the body lines of the truck, but give you the options to add more lights, a winch, whatever the case, you can add it all here, which is nice. Sunglass holders, you get the adjustable sliding power windows, your garage home buttons, and even your illuminated visors. It's a pretty standard, nice, luxurious interior here in an off-road vehicle. Really not too shabby, but very impressive in the Ranger Raptor. Okay, so what's it like to drive the Ranger Raptor? Well, really, it's an epic experience. I mean, the way they set this truck up, the truck is incredibly comfortable. It feels like you could fly over any bumps or even speed bumps in the city at any speed. You always have power available. I mean, seriously, that 405 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque is an insane amount of power for this truck. Even if it is the heaviest Ranger currently in production, it is incredibly impressive as a vehicle overall. So it's just a great experience to drive. Obviously, the interactions with everything you get in the interior also feels great. You're going to spend most of your time in here, and that's reflected. And it's also just pairs perfectly with everything you could do while driving this truck. Now this truck can do way more than what I'm currently doing here on this forest road. This thing will slide out no problem with the rear end. You can slide it around anywhere. You can definitely potentially jump it, not that I would recommend that, but this thing is just built different from all of the other various trucks that exist in the market, and it's by far and above one of the best. It accelerates the fastest, it's certainly going to beat out the competition, and you can have a good time doing it. And I think that's really where it matters. The fact that you can actually adjust things like these steering inputs, the exhaust tones, and all of those things to your liking also means that maybe you might not like the factory settings but prefer the comfort or even the sports steering that's available in this truck. And so to that, I think this will appeal to everybody. It's a mid-sized truck, but the seating position is just like that of a full-size truck, and it's just very comfortable. You can spend hours, as I did road tripping this truck up to Williams from Phoenix, and it's just a good time all around. It really doesn't get any better than that here in the Ford Ranger Raptor. So there you have it. That is a look at the brand new Ford Ranger Raptor, and what a truck it is. It's almost insane to me that Ranger's in the name at all because of how much they changed. I mean, like we pointed out, the suspension, the interior, the powertrain. This truck is really in its own class, and even with the trucks that might be considered competition, this thing is way better than the Chevrolet ZR2 or the Tacoma TRD. You could argue some of those are going for different things, but the fact of the matter is, just outright performance, this has 95 more horsepower than the ZR2, which is the next closest horsepower competitor. I mean, that is insane. This truck is incredible when you compare them to. Now, granted, it is also the most expensive of trucks in that class at $55,000, but I think that is a fantastic price for everything you get here. But the truth of the matter is, these trucks, you will have some issues with additional markup, unfortunately, from dealers, which kind of comes with the Raptor tagline. So if you can find one for MSRP, let me know. I'd love to hear that story. And let me just know what you think about the Ranger Raptor. If you've ordered one, if you've already got yours, or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them in the comment section down below. But with that is going to be the end of the video. If you go ahead and hit that like button for me, I'd really appreciate it. And consider getting subscribed for content like this in the future. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.